Okay, so today we're going to be building a system for a friend of mine. It's going to be a Ryzen 5 3600 base system. It's pretty entry level. It's pretty much what most people are getting nowadays for the first build or second build even. It's a very good CPU for the money. Very good graphics card for the money as well. Although it will be outdated pretty soon. And it pretty much is already, but for the money what you're getting it's a very good value. Right. So I'm just going to start unboxing or unbagging things that arrived from Amazon. I have not looked at these parts before. The first thing I planned on doing is inspecting them for quality, as well as maybe a dry fit, see if they possibly are going to have clearance issues, or they could have something that I have not planned for, Be careful here not to break anything. Getting started here. Wow, it's beautiful. It's upside down, but it's still beautiful. Alright, and now for the reveal. Here we go. There it is. It's a glass side panel. Hopefully the tempered type of glass. It's still covered in a sticker, which is nice, with the film. We'll peel that later. It's got 3 RGB fans in the front. That's where it's going to intake air. And then it's got a mini type of mount support here, but I'm going to be using the ATX mount, which looks like it's already been set up for, because I can see there's headers, or standoffs, sorry, which are in the correct position for the ATX mount. And I'm going to make sure they're tightened correctly. I believe I do have the tool to put in standoffs. Alright. So here's how it looks at the factory. It's got all the cables neatly bundled together. So the back, that's how the back looks like. Standard layout. You got the PSU slot here. You got your I/O area here. You got your graphics card mount location there. There's the front, and that's sort of the front. It's the side, but I like to have that as the front. Here's the actual front. Got 3 fans behind here. Got a mesh fractal design sort of cover on the front. Power button. You got your microphone in, headphone in, reset button. 3.0 USB. So that's type A, the big one, big style. Squarish. Yeah. Got a magnetized filter on top for collecting dust so it doesn't go into the system on the top. And on the bottom, of course, nobody looks at, but we do have a similar type of situation here where, the power supply is sucking air from beneath the case. It's going to be pulling air through this mesh as well, which you could remove and clean anytime you want. And yeah, that's the case. On to the next item. Oh, here's the CPU. Ryzen 5 3600 from A&D. It's a very good value. Pretty hard to come by, honestly, nowadays. The official Amazon seller, I think it's either AMD or Amazon.com, I'm not sure, but they had it in stock, but I did have to wait for this a little bit longer than usual. It's sealed, hasn't been opened before. I'm just going to unbox it real quick. It does come with a cooler, if you buy it that way, which is why I did not buy a cooler for this system, for the CPU at least. There it is. Beautiful. It's a big silicon chip that does lots of complex mathematical fancy calculations to make your computer function. And the cooler is right here. There's the cooler. It's got thermal compound or whatever installed already in a perfect circle. I think it's compound, but just applied by a robot of some sort. That's why it's so perfect. And this will just screw on to the motherboard after the CPU is installed. Put that aside for now very carefully. Don't want that going anywhere, dropping. That's one of the more expensive items from a computer. Sometimes the most expensive. Alright. Actually, I'll just leave it sort of unboxed. Like so. Alright, next item will be, it seems like from the size of this, it's the graphics card, but I may be wrong. The graphics cards are pretty durable. If it did drop, it would have survived that, no problem. You could slap this down on the table, it's not going to do much harm, especially since it's still packaged. Alright, yeah, it is the graphics card, and it's the EVGA GTX 1650 Super. So a little bit better than the normal one, if they even sell the normal one anymore. There it is. EVGA is well known for making really high quality parts, as well as parts that are overclocking and power user friendly. So you could do more than what just comes out of the box, or what is set up out of the box with it. I'll burn up here. Well, I am on carpet and I am in cotton socks, which will create electrostatic charge. So what I'm going to have to do is set up a ground of some sort so that my electrostatic charge is discharged to ground. And it's going to be useful. Let's power on and discharge the electrostatic charge. Alright, I'm handling it by the plastic for now. But here it is, the EVGA GTX 1650 Super graphics card. It's pretty cool looking. Bring it up to the light here. Okay, next item that I'm unboxing will be this, I believe is the RAM. I have 32 gigabytes of DDR4 3600 megahertz RAM from G-Skill, and here it is. It's a RGB version, so it's going to look good when it's installed into your case. No really need to unbox it because pretty much that's how it looks when it's all lit up. Alright, next item. Power supply right here. This is the Cooler Master, the same brand as the case. Cooler Master Elite 400 watt version 3 power supply. So here it is. It's got all the connectors that you need. That's the power cable filled with it. And it's got, I believe, mini SATA power connectors, CPU power, then it has your PCI Express power, and obviously your ATX 24-pin Molex power as well. So that should be all you need. It comes with the screws that you need to install into the case, which is nice. I'll leave that there for now. Keep discharging the electrostatic charge because I'm rubbing my feet across the floor, which may be generating charge. Alright, we have our network card, and we have our 500 gig SSD, which is going to be going over SATA connector, which is 600 megabits or bytes per second, I believe. 600 megabits, I believe. Yeah. And that is fairly quick. It's probably faster than the throughput that this is capable of. Well, don't really know. Yeah. Network card is fairly nice. It can achieve high speeds. Supports 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. And so the max speed that it could do, according to the packaging, not real tests, is 1300 for 5G and 600 megabits per second. Bits. If you want megabytes, divide by 8. And it works on 802.11 AC technology. Supports A, B, G, and N carrier waves, so whatever that means. It's just a standard, I believe. Let's get that opened up. I'm being too careful, huh? Boxes are meant to be unboxed like you want it. Alright. Owner's manual, some sort of cover. This is for mounting on your case. You might need to install this, you might not. I don't think I did it on the previous one. Yeah, it has the full size. So if you had a mini case, like a micro ATX sized case, then you would need this one and just replace that with the full size case mount here. So we're not going to be needing that. It has some antennas. Let's see, it has everything, the one that you need. It connects via PCI Express right here, small size. So like, I don't know what that name of that connector is. Try not to touch any of the bare metal SMD components because that can have discharge and they will stop working. Alright, so there it is. This is the network adapter. This is what allows you to connect to the Wi-Fi with your computer. Alright, network card here. I'm installing that last. That's not quite important for a computer function. Alright, well, actually, that comes right back in the box. There it is. Rosewell brand. The model number is RNX AC 1900 PCE. Pretty good value. Okay, an SSD that I chose is a 500 gigabyte Samsung 860 EVO. Don't want to touch those pins because I could easily destroy it. So driven by the side there, which is good design on their part. So a close-up of the SSD that I'm using here. There's the back. It's got mounting holes for your hard drive sliding trays. This must be the motherboard by the size. Hopefully it wasn't damaged in shipping, because these are quite easy to damage. There's a background noise that you may be hearing right now, which is the heater, and I'll try to talk over it louder. So this is the motherboard looks like, and the operating system, which is Windows 10. It's a CD. I won't be using that method. I'll be using the Crate operating system installation media, the Windows service. Which for that, I may need to boot up the other computer that I have, should have prepped a little bit more before I started. So the motherboard I chose is the Tough Gaming B550. This motherboard has background I/O port, which has 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, then 2 USB 2.0, which you don't want to use unless it's like a keyboard and mouse. Even then, if you're doing professional work, you may want faster data bandwidth. And then this motherboard also has 1 HDMI port, 1 display port, 1 Realtek Ethernet 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port, and 5 audio jacks. That's quite a bit. one optical SPDIF out port, one BIOS flash backlight. So if you wanted to get the BIOS to return to its factory settings or factory firmware, then it would do that. Alright, so in the build we have gone to the point where I've installed the CPU, I've installed the CPU cooler, I've unboxed everything and checked all the parts for any problems pretty much. Well, just by noting things as I'm going. I'm not really going to talk about it because obviously that'll take too long, and I've explained some of the features that the motherboard has and all the other parts pretty much. So now I'm going to be installing the memory and 2-channel configuration, which is going to require me, according to the manual, to install them in DIMM A2 and DIMM B2, and that is labeled here underneath the CPU cooler. Okay. Looks like this is the orientation. Let's make it so you guys can see. There it goes, just clicks into place. There it is, RAM installed. Next thing I will install is the graphics card. So I've already taken out the protective cover over the connection points. Now let's go ahead and install it. Now I'm leaving clearance on the edge of the box here for this little tab to be able to move past. So once installed, this tab here will click in and hold it in place. And this this PCI Express slot is actually reinforced by metal, which makes it extremely durable. Well, in computer hardware standards, it's durable. Won't survive a dumb mistake though. There it is, that's installed. And now let's hook up the power supply, and because I believe that'll be it. Power supply to give it power, monitor to see output, and that'll be it. We don't need storage yet, because storage could be installed later so that you could put an operating system on it. Obviously, the built-in storage on the motherboard, or I mean, graphics card could probably hold some your OS if you found a way to get the operating system to go there. But later we're going to have the system be on a hard drive, this SSD. Okay, so power. What you need for power if you're benching it is ATX, PCI Express, and CPU. There's 3 of them. So here's our ATX 24 pin. And then we should have our PCI power right here and CPU power right here. Alright. This goes to graphics. Well, this way. Clicks in there. This goes to CPU power, which is right above the CPU if the motherboard is upright. Okay, that's ready. And then ATX power on the motherboard, which is the 24 pin. And that connects up to here. Wish I had more support for this, because it's flexing a lot. What's this support and that? There you go. That's ready to go. This is all the power for hard drives, I/O. This is like older style I/O right here. This is SATA power. Yeah. You have an even older style connector here for older connectors. Okay. So we're ready to see if the system posts. And the way to boot it would be connect two of these with a connective lead. I've forgotten already which ones they are, so I'm going to refer to the owner's manual for that part. See, that's not the layout I'm seeing, so the previous pinout that I've seen for the power switch, the HDD LED, the reset switch, the HDD activity light, all of that, it's different, so I just want to make sure that I'm connecting things in the right way here. The owner's manual is just fine. I should just use the owner's manual. Power button. I'm being paranoid, just being super careful, because yes, it's not my PC, but I want to treat it as it is my PC. Okay. So we have the CPU here mounted, graphics card's in, it's receiving power, CPU is receiving power, it is cooled, it's got the fan connected, which means it's not going to overheat. If I do need to, in a jiffy, turn it off, I will simply touch those two contacts again. But now we're not ready yet. We still need a keyboard, mouse. Don't really need a mouse. I could work with just the keyboard, but keyboard, mouse, and monitor are the next thing on the line. Power's connected. Not turned on yet, so now I'm gonna get this monitor connected. Monitor also needs power and HDMI to the graphics card, which is perfectly oriented right now. Ooh, I've used up all my connectors there. Okay. That's connected. That's that power. I don't need to have ground at the moment because it's going to be grounded by the power supply. That could go. Power supply is connected. Monitor is connected. Hey, so that was what to use. So then, the next thing I'm going to be connecting is a keyboard and a mouse. Okay, we're ready to give this thing power. It's connected. Just the last double check before I power this thing. RAM is seated, graphics card is seated. That's going to feed data to the display. We have our peripherals connected. CPU should be receiving power. And the motherboard should be receiving power. There it is. Okay, it's all set up. Display was powered on, I select. Okay. The moment of truth to see if all the hardware that's most expensive actually works. So I'm going to watch those lights as I give this motherboard and all the components on it power. Nothing yet. So it's received power. But now it's waiting for the power switch to be pushed on the case, right? So at this point, I'm going to put power on the case, which according to the manual is located on the top left and third and fourth pin on the top left, if you're looking from this direction. Alright, at this point we're ready to power on the system. The motherboard has all the components that are needed for a quick hardware check installed. The power is being supplied to the graphics card with PCI Express power. The CPU is receiving power. The CPU is cooled with a cooling fan. We have a RAM installed. We have ATX power to the motherboard connected. And all that's left is to see if it outputs anything, which it should because this is new. And we have our keyboard and mouse connected for interacting with the computer once I power it on. There we go. So the fan should spin up, and the CPU at least. CPU cooler. Graphics card, maybe not, but we'll see. Nothing is obstructing the fans. That's also important. Nothing is stopping it from moving. If it was, it would be bad for the motors. Here we go, carefully. Confirm. Powering on. Fans are spinning, which is good. We have LED on the CPU. VGA is good. DRAM has not lit up, so CPU VGA is good. Alright, VGA, CPU, again, cycled. The monitor. Okay, it's booting. There it is, we've got a post. Perfect! Alright, yes! That kind of got me a little bit worried there, but this computer is now at this point functional. Alright, so here we are. I've just booted the system. I've finished putting together everything that I need to test it on the bench. It's got the graphics card installed, the RAM, and the CPU along with the cooler. It's being provided by power here. 3 different places, the ATX, PCI Express, and CPU power. And it's posting here. I'm going to show you guys what it's posting. So it has recognized that it's an Asus TUF Gaming B550 Plus motherboard. CPU is a Ryzen 5 3600 6-core. Speed is 3600 megahertz, which is higher than my 3200. I don't know if that's out of the box supposed to be like that. I have to confirm. It has found the keyboard and mouse that I've connected to it right there, and it's asking to run setup, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to install the OS here soon after I put it into the case. Alright, here we go. What I'm going to do next is power it off the same way I powered it on. There it is, powered off. Once the fan stops spinning, I'm going to disconnect power with the switch. And then I'm going to disconnect the power to all these components here, which have actually heated up a little bit. Wow, surprising. They weren't doing much. I'm going to be super careful with this. Come on now. This is really hard to pull out due to the size of this. Mouse keyboard disconnect. Monitor disconnect that as well. I'm going to take out the graphics card for now. Do this fairly carefully. There we go. Kind of interested as to how the RGB fans hook up in here. Alright, ASRock, Asus, and MSI. Take this as a fan header. Okay, now be careful with that. 3-pin fan header. Okay, perfect. I have a weird way of connecting it. And so we have RGB power and just motor power for the fans, it looks like. So, yeah, I'm going to find a spot, connect it up, and see if it works later. The most important ones are the IOs, and to actually give the fan motor power, which I will do. Alright, so we're back where we left off. I posted the system and I figured out that all the hardware such as the RAM, the CPU, the power supply, motherboard, all of it works well. It recognizes it all, it works well together, there's no issues. So now I'm going to proceed to building it inside of the case. And it shows me what this is. I think this is an M.2 cover. Oh, we got two M.2 drive slots here, which is awesome. I want to check it out. Because if you were to install an M.2 drive, which is much faster than the SATA drive that I have, it would run much faster, obviously. Because it has a better bus between the CPU and the drive. So we have here a sticker which is covering a thermal conductive material, which will get the heat from the drive and maintain it at a reasonable level and not let it overheat. These drives, once they're used quite a bit, or for intensive use, they're going to overheat a little, or heat up quite a bit. Hard drive may start to degrade slightly, or behave unexpectedly, because the way semiconductors work is there's lots of little transistors inside, which rely on a constant or predictable temperature range for them to operate well. Okay, so I'm going to install this motherboard into the case right now, and then we'll move on from there. When you're building computers, make sure to have plenty of desk space everywhere, because you're going to end up using it all. We have our I/O shield here. I can install it right now. This goes in the back of the case here. Make sure the lead ring is either upright, or just look at your motherboard and see which orientation it requires. And you want to install this I/O shield before you the motherboard, because otherwise you have pretty much zero clearance to install it. And as I've mentioned before in an earlier bit, this case actually has the standoffs for the ATX mount already in it. I'm going to move things around slightly here. Fine, I'll just leave it here. Okay. So here are the standoffs for the ATX mount. Already pre-installed. Some are loose, which I'll fix a little bit. And I don't have to do any work finding the positions of them, measuring everything out so that the ATX motherboard will fit, which is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten those standoffs with the tool. I don't know if they included it here. Oh wow, somebody in the factory over tightened one of these standoffs. So the middle standoff on the left here just keeps turning, just doing the standoff. So that'll be a bad mount. It won't be perfect because of that out of the factory defect, which is fine. You could get by on connecting a motherboard up with only one screw as long as it's a good quality connection there. Those are done. Put that over there. That's weird. They want you to put the SSD on the bottom of the tray. I don't do that. It's letting the screws pretty much do everything. Okay, it'll work. I'll install the PSU after the motherboard. I'm going to pre-install and not two screws here. Just so if the plan is to upgrade later, you can do so. I love the design here. Really well thought out. That's ready to go. That should be compatible with that. Awesome. Alright. I love the way to design all the parts here. It just works. Although, I'm going to actually do this the other way. Goes there, and this one will go there. Okay, that is clear at this point. Why they went different ways, why they decided to choose different screws for what. So there's 2.2 SSD mounts. I'm just pre-installing the screws just for the future so that when you go to install them, you have all the screws on hand, and you don't have to buy any. Yes, that has a little wobble, but that's because it's built so that when you pull the screw, when you put the SSD in there, it's supposed to be pushed down onto the thermal compound, which is on this metal plate, by the screw. So anyway, that's hard to explain. That's why that's there. Like it is. We got some VRM cooling right there. Alright, it's time to move past that. What do they have there? I see. So these are meant for spinning hard disk drives. That's what it's for. I was confused for a second there. Like, why would you need to put rubber feet on your motherboard mount? That's what initially they looked like they were for, but no, it's for these. I'll put those in there. But that's just, these rubber feet are there to reduce the amount of vibration which is transferred from a shock to the case that can be transferred to the hard drive, which are actually sensitive to impacts. So it's a very good design on Cooler Master's side. So then once you've got the hard drive on there, from the bottom you would screw in the hard drive with one of the screws. Okay. That's 4. This screw here, not screwing in all the way due to being stripped. But anyway. The rest are fine though. Thing is, you are screwing into a 1/16 inch steel, so it is going to do that if you're not careful. But that's, you know, that's not me. That's the manufacturer. Okay, one more. Okay. 2 more actually. Right, that's set up and ready to go. Now I'm going to install a graphics card. Power supply first and then graphics card. Graphics card fine. That's right here. We'll need some clearance for it. A crate clearance for it. By unscrewing one of these backside covers. I'm just checking which ones I need to remove. It looks like the second and third from the top. And that's why I included extra bolts, just so that you can add two graphics cards, I guess. Two graphics cards, and say you didn't have these screws pre-installed on the case, you'd be able to install the graphics card without having those. Okay, get that card in there. I'll peel off the protective film. Not that glorious. I'll do it after it's installed. Actually, now is better because then you won't be able to have access to this bottom side as easy when it's installed. So here it is. Film's all off. Install into this top PCIe slot. Of course, I'm going to get this cover up. There you go. Alright, so we're pretty far into the PC build of Ivan's PC. What we have here so far is the CPU is mounted. We have the cooler on the CPU installed, we have the RAM installed, we have the power installed for connected to the graphics card, to the CPU, as well as ATX to the motherboard. And then right now I'm working on the connectors for the front panel buttons, as well as the HD hard drive LED, as well as the power switch. All of that small stuff, which is super hard to do. That's why I have tweezers out. Next up, I'm going to work on the fans, which are RGB. I'm going to connect those up and refer to the manual for where's the optimal mounting location for those. And after that, I'm probably going to get the hard drive connected. Hard drive is already installed into one of the sliding trays, which are right behind here. I just need to connect the SATA data and SATA power to it. I believe I'm using SATA 1. Connector 1, which should be 0 through 6, or through 5 if you're talking computer terms, because you can start counting as 0. Anyway, yeah, so I'm going to continue with those little tiny connectors, which are probably the hardest part of the build. I'm not even going to have a hard disk drive in here, but I'm still going to connect this. Oh yeah. Tweezers are the way to go with these. And last but not least, we have our reset switch, which is not polarized. It doesn't matter which way you plug it in, but I still have it so that you could read the lettering on it. Alright, hardest part of the build is done. Those dumb connectors. And now we need to connect the HD audio. Should be right there. I'll double check that though. HD audio actually on the left side here. Right next to the filter caps for the audio. So I guess I'll connect the things up like the manual implies to do, just so I'm plugging things into the optimal headers. Okay, so I've already done most of it already. I just need the fans. I need the HD audio, which should be over there. Okay, I'm gonna go out of sequence. Front panel audio 14. That's ready to go. Those are done. Now I'm going to go in sequence and connect the fan headers. CPU fan is already done. That was used for the initial test. It has an RGB header, but that header actually has 4 pins, but the connector has 3. Addressable Gen 2 header is the one on the right, which is what I have. Cool. Kind of don't want to use a fan header that's really in the middle of the case. That's a bit unsightly. I'm going to use the chassis fan 2 connector right there. Perfect. They've all been spliced into one. So all 3 fans should be connected at this point. The HD audio, front panel audio is pretty much done at this point. The fans are done. The front panel audio is done. So I'm done with the cases connections. Okay, so I'm just going to cable manage this just a little bit because it's a bit messy to work with right now. So this cluster of wires coming off the PSU I won't be using for anything, so I'm going to go ahead and put it right there in the spot in some space that's right next to the power supply. I'm already begin with my cable management ordeal. And this next connection I'm going to make is the SATA power for the hard drive I've already installed. And I'll actually use the first one in line here. SATA data, though, the thing with SATA data is you don't want it to be next to power because that may cause system instability. I'm going to keep it off to the side by itself here. The RGB should work. That's connected to the addressable RGB header. And then, yeah, that's really all you need. So I've got everything mostly ready to go and installed. You do need a graphics, not a graphics, network adapter. I'm going to get Wi-Fi, so I'll need to install that as well. It's pretty straightforward, it just goes into the smaller PCI. This will go right like this. Put it in a fairly large distance away from the graphics card so that heating will not be an issue, so it has good airflow. I need that screw. Actually, I have extras here. Pop that in, and then we're going to have network connectivity. Antennas will allow it to have increased signal gathering capability. So, connect those up. Yep. Right now I'm going to keep them not really positioned any certain way, but just like that. And then you can tune it later so that it's better. The connection is better. Alright. I feel like I'm missing stuff now. I'm just going to follow this manual real quick just to make sure I have everything good. I already did the hardest part, which is those dumb little connectors for the front panel. I'd recommend there's a tool they can get that groups them all together in the right configuration, and you just plug in the whole group at the same time rather than fiddling around with each individual one. That's ready to go. There's really not much to this build. I'm pretty much done at this point. Alright, so I've put everything into the case, I've built it. I've just connected the ATX power, the USB 3.0 power, so I've plugged in the keyboard and mouse to the front to test that. Then I've also plugged in a network adapter, graphics card is in there with its power, CPU has power, this is cooler. The RAM is put into DIMM A2 and B2. And I'm just about to connect up the display here and give it a test with everything installed inside the case. Alright, here we go. Okay, so here we go, we're going to boot from the power button. As I've said, I have everything pretty much connected as it would be in a finished system. I just need to connect I need to cable manage on the back side there, and that'll be it. So here we go. PSU power. We'll turn that on real quick and watch the LEDs. So RGB is on the motherboard, which is a good sign. And then I'm going to watch the LEDs on the motherboard light up as it boots. But it has no OS installed currently on the 500 gig SSD on the Samsung 860. So we're not going to have OS type of display here. It's just going to be a post. Or it may try to boot to the SSD, so that can happen too. And we'll have to work our way around that. Okay, here we go. So the CPU fan is spinning, GPU fan is spinning, VGA signal there, VGA, CPU, boot, RGB is there, perfect, it's blue. Now good post. Everything's good. Okay. Alright, so it recognizes that there's a keyboard and mouse in the front panel, which means that that connector is good. And then it recognizes the hard drive, which means it's communicating, it's getting power. And the speed of memory still is at 3600, which is honestly, I didn't think I had 3600 RAM. Oh, it is a 3600. Nice. Okay. So Ryzen 5 3600 running at 3600 megahertz, or for at least the RAM. But the clock speed is actually 4 point something gigahertz for the actual CPU. Yeah, cool. Next step, OS install. And then after that, cable management, cleanup, a few more just aesthetic things, and just run some benchmarks maybe afterward. We'll see about that. Alright, here we go. I'm powered off for now. Fans are off. I have to turn off PSU power. That's it. From here, it's going to be quite a while until I get the whole operating system part of it set up, and once it actually boots to the Windows 10 OS, I'll get this video started again.